All right, lads. Welcome back to the channel. Again, we're gonna continue reading Karlson Flies Again, um, which is actually the second book out of three. I don't think I'm gonna read the third one, but this is actually the second book. And what we left off last time was Karlson and Smidge having some fun with Miss Crawley, the housekeeper. Stealing uh, some buns and just kind of fooling around with her. So that was fun, and that was chapter 4. So today's chapter 5, and this one is called Karlson on the Box. So let's see what this one's about. Dad came home for dinner with something else to worry about. I'm sorry, you lot, but it looks as though you'll have to cope on your own for a couple of days. The people at work want me to fly to London for some meetings. How do you think it'll go? It'll go fine, said Smidge, as long as you don't get in the way of the propeller. That made Dad laugh. Well, I really meant, how are things going to work out for you three, here at home without Mom or me? Seb and Sally couldn't see any problem. They would even quite enjoy having their parents out of the way for once, Sally said. Yes, but what about Smidge, said Dad. Sally ruffled Smidge's mop of fair hair. Yeah, I'll be just like a mother to him, she assured Dad, but he wasn't convinced, and nor was Smidge. You're always running about with boys whenever anyone needs you, Smidge muttered. Seb tried to console him. But you've always got me. Yeah, at the football pitch, grumbled Smidge. Seb laughed. That only leaves Creepy Crawley. She doesn't run about with boys or kick footballs. No, worse luck, said Smidge. He sat trying to work out exactly how much he loathed Miss Crawley, but then he realized something odd. He wasn't cross with her anymore, not a bit cross. Smidge was amazed. How had that happened? Did just being locked in with a person for 2 hours teach you to put up with them? It wasn't that he suddenly liked Miss Crawley, far from it, but he seemed to have become a bit more human. Poor thing, having to live with that Frida. Smidge knew all about what it felt like having problems with your brothers and sisters, but at least Sally didn't spend her time boasting about ghosts on television like Frida. I don't want you three left on your own overnight, said Dad. The best thing will be to ask Miss Crawley to stay while I'm away. So I've got to put up with her at night as well as the day, have I? Asked Smidge. But inside he felt it was a good idea to have someone looking after them, even if it was only a Creepy Crawley. And Miss Crawley was more than happy to come and stay with the children. When she and Smidge happened to be alone together, she explained why. It's at night most hauntings happen, you see. So now I'm going to gather up enough of them for a television program that will make Frida fall off her chair when she sees me in it. This worried Smidge. What if, while Dad was away, Miss Crawley let loads of television people into the building, and one of them happened to catch sight of Karlson, although he wasn't a ghost at all, but just good old Karlson? And that would be the end of the peace and quiet Mom and Dad were so keen to hanging on to. Smidge realized he'd have to warn Karlson and tell him to be careful. He wasn't able to do it until the following evening. He was on his own in the flat. Dad had already left for London. Seb and Sally were both out, doing their own thing. And Miss Crawley had just popped home to see Frida in Frey Street, to ask her if she'd seen any ghosts recently. I'll be back soon, she told Smidge as she left. If any ghosts turn up, ask them to take a seat and wait for me. Ha ha ha. Miss Crawley didn't often tell jokes and hardly ever laughed, and on the rare occasions when she did, you were grateful it didn't happen more often. But this time she got quite carried away. Smidge could hear her laugh fading away down the stairs. It was a sort of laugh that echoed around the halls. Almost immediately, Karlson came flying in at the window. Hasten Hobson, Smidge, what shall we do now? He asked. Got any steam engines we can explode, or creepy crawlies we can tirritate? Anything will do, but I must have some fun. Or you can count me out. We can watch television, suggested Smidge. And just imagine Karlson turned out not to have a clue about television. He'd never seen a TV set in his whole life. Smidge took him into the sitting room and pointed proudly at their posh new set with its big screen. Look, what's that box for? Asked Karlson. It's not a box, it's television, explained Smidge. What do you keep in a box like that? He said Karlson. Buns by any chance? Smidge laughed. Not on your life. Here, I'll show you what it does. He switched on the set, and suddenly there was a man on the screen talking about what the weather would be like in the north of Sweden. Karlsson's eyes grew wide with surprise. How did you get him into the box? Smidge laughed. How do you think? He crawled in there when he was a baby, of course. What do you keep him for? Karlsson wanted to know. Ha ha, can't you tell I'm joking? Said Smidge. Of course he didn't crawl in there when he was a baby, and we don't keep him for anything. He's just there, see, telling us what the weather's going to be like tomorrow. He's one of those weathermen, okay? Karlsson gave a giggle. So you have a special man stuffed in a box to tell you what the weather is going to do tomorrow? Why not wait and see? Or ask me, there's going to be thunder and rain and hail and storms and an earthquake. Happy now? The coast of Norland will have storms and rain tomorrow, said the weatherman on the television screen. Karlsson laughed delightedly. What did I tell you? Storms and rain. He went right up to the set and pressed his nose up against the weatherman's nose. And an earthquake, too, don't forget that. Poor people up in Norland, and what terrible weather they're going to have. They ought to be glad they're getting any weather at all. What if they found themselves left without any weather? He gave the man on the screen a kindly pat. What a dinky little man, he said, smaller than me. I like that. Then he knelt down and investigated underside of the set. So where did he get in exactly? Smidge tried to explain that it was just a picture on the screen, not a living person. But then Karlsson almost lost his temper. Pull the other one, you dummy. He's moving, isn't he? And do you find dead people talking about the weather in northern Norland, hey? Smidge didn't know much about how television worked, but he did his best to explain it all to Karlsson. And there was that warning he needed to give Karlsson, too. Miss Crawley wants to be on TV, too, you know, he began. But that made Karlsson roar with laughter. Creepy Crawley in a little box like that. That great lump, she'd have to fold herself in quarters. Smidge sighed. Karlsson clearly hadn't understood a thing. Smidge had to explain all over again. It seemed hopeless, but in the end, he did at least get Karlsson to understand the remarkable way a gadget like this worked. Miss Crawley didn't have to crawl into the set herself. She could be sitting comfortably miles away, but you would still be able to able to see her on the screen as large as life, Smidge told him. Creepy Crawley as large as life? Oh, how awful, said Karlsson. You'd much better off throwing out the box or swapping it for one with buns in it. Just then a pretty television announcer came onto the screen. She gave such a charming smile that Karlsson's eyes nearly popped out of his head. Although, he said, they would have to be particularly scrumptious buns, because I can see there's more to this box than you might think at first. The announcer lady carried on smiling at Karlsson, and Karlsson smiled back. He nudged Smidge in the side. Look at that little princess. She likes me, oh yes, because obviously she can see I'm a handsome, thoroughly clever, perfectly plump man in my prime. The announcer's face suddenly disappeared. Instead, there were two serious, ugly gentlemen who just talked and talked. Karlsson didn't like that. He started twiddling all the buttons and controls he could find. No, don't do that, said Smidge. I have to. How else can I find that little princess again? Said Karlsson. He twiddled away madly, but the announcer didn't come back. All that happened was that the ugly gentlemen got even uglier. They sprouted short, squat legs and very high foreheads. Karlsson laughed at them. He also kept himself amused for a good long time by turning the set on and off. Those blokes come and go exactly as I want them to, he said smugly. The two gentlemen just keep on talking and talking whenever Karlsson gave them a chance. I, for my part, am of the opinion, said one of them. I don't care, said Karlsson. Go home to bed. He switched off the set with a loud click and laughed delightedly. Just think how annoyed that bloke will be that he didn't get to tell us what he, for his part, is of the opinion. But now Karlsson was tired of the television and wanted some other amusement. Where's Creepy Crawley? Bring her here so I can figurate her. Figurate? How does that go? Asked Smidge anxiously. Well, said Karlsson, there are 3 ways to tame creepy crawlies. You can irritate them, or jiggery poke them, or figurate them. They're all the same thing, really, but when you figurate, there's more close tackling. Smidge grew even more anxious. What if Karlsson actually started tackling Miss Crawley? Then she'd see him, and that most definitely wasn't supposed to happen. Smidge would have to keep a close eye on him all the time. Mom and Dad were away, however hard that would be. He'd have to try to scare Cuddleson somehow, so Cuddleson had the sense to keep out of Miss Crawley's way. Smidge thought about it, and then he said cunningly, "Hey, Cuddleson, wouldn't you like to be on television?" Cuddleson shook his head violently. "In that box? Me? Not while I've got the health and strength to fight them off." But then a thought seemed to strike him. Although, if that little princess was going to be there, Smidge told Cuddleson firmly that there was no hope of that. Oh no, if Cuddleson was on TV, it would be with Creepy Crawly without a doubt. Cuddleson gave a start. Me and Creepy Crawly in the same box? Watch out if there hasn't already been an earthquake in northern Norland. There'll be one then. Make a note of that. Whatever gave you such a ridiculous idea? So then Smidge told him about the ghost program Miss Crawley was planning to star in on television, to make Frida fall off her chair. "Has Creepy Crawly seen a ghost, then?" asked Cuddleson. "No, she hasn't seen one," said Cuddleson, "but she's heard one mooing outside the window. She thinks you're a ghost." Then Smidge explained how they all fitted together, Frida and Creepy Crawly and Cuddleson in television. But if he had thought that would scare Cuddleson, he was wrong. Cuddleson slapped his knees and roared with delight. And when he had finished roaring, he slapped Smidge on the back. "Look after Creepy Crawly. She's the best bit of furniture you've got in this flat. Just you look after her, because now we can really start to have some fun." "How?" asked Smidge uneasily. "Frida's not the only one who's going to be falling off her chair." "Oh no," said Cuddleson. "Hold on to your seats, all you Creepy Crawlies and TV blokes, and just see who comes zooming in." Smidge grew even more worried. Who is gonna come zooming in? "Your neighborhood ghost," cried Cuddleson. "Whoop whoop!" At that point, Smidge gave up. He had warned Cuddleson and tried to do what Mom and Dad wanted. Cuddleson would just have to have his own way, because he always did. When it came to the crunch, Cuddleson could jiggery poke and play ghost and figure it as much as he liked. Smidge wasn't going to try to stop him any longer, and once he decided that, he had the feeling it was going to be a lot of fun. He remembered another time when Cuddleson had been a ghost and had scared away some burglars who were trying to steal Mom's housekeeping money and all the silver cutlery. Cuddleson hadn't forgotten it either. "Do you remember what fun we had?" he said. "By the way, where's the ghost outfit I had that time?" Smidge had to admit that Mom had taken it. She'd been pretty angry about the sheet Cuddleson had ruined, but then she had mended the holes and made the ghost outfit back into a sheet. Cuddleson gave a snort when Smidge told him. "That sort of interference really gets on my nerves. Nobody ever leaves anything alone in this house." He sat down on a chair and sulked. "If this is how it's going to be, you can count me out. You'll have to get your own ghosts, the lot of you." But then he dashed across the linen cupboard and opened the door. Luckily, there are plenty more sheets. He grabbed one of Mom's finest linen sheets, but Smidge came rushing to rescue it. "Oh no, not that. Leave that one alone. There are some old, worn-out sheets here. They'll do." Cuddleson didn't look impressed. Worn-out sheets. I thought the neighborhood ghost would be dressed up in his Sunday best. But all right, that's fine by me. I know this isn't one of the better houses. Pass me the old rags. So Smidge rooted around for a pair of old sheets and gave them to Cuddleson. "If you sew them together, they'll make a decent ghost outfit," he said. Cuddleson stood grimly clutching the sheets. "If I sew them together? If you sew them together, you mean? Come on, we'll fly up to my house so Creepy Crawly doesn't come bursting in while you're busy stitching." Smidge spent the next hour sitting up at Cuddleson's making ghost outfit. At school, he'd learned running stitch, backstitch, and cross stitch, but nobody had shown him how to sew together two worn-out sheets to make a ghost costume. He had to try to work it out for himself. He had a half-hearted try at getting Cuddleson to help. "You could at least do the cutting out," said Smidge. Cuddleson shook his head. The only cutting out I'm likely to do is your mum. I'd like to cut her out of my life. Why does she have to go and take my ghost outfit? I'd like to know. It's only right and proper that you should have to make me a new one. Now get started and stop winging." What was more, exclaimed Cuddleson, he simply hadn't got time for any sewing, because he needed to paint a picture double quick. That's what you have to do when inspiration comes, and mine has just come. I heard a plop, and there it was. Smidge didn't know what inspiration was, but Cuddison explained that it was a sort of illness that struck down all picture painters and made them want to paint and paint instead of making ghost outfits. So Smidge climbed onto the carpentry bench and sat cross-legged like a tailor, snipping and sewing while Cuddison made himself comfortable in the corner by the fireplace and got on with his picture. Outside it was pitch dark, but inside Cuddleson's house it was light and cozy. The oil lamp was giving off a glow, and a fire was burning in the grate. "I hope you've been paying attention in your sewing lessons," said Cuddleson, because I do want my ghost costume to look smart. I rather fancy a bit of blanket stitch around the neck, or maybe some feather stitching." Smidge didn't answer. He just kept sewing away. The fire crackled, and Cuddleson painted. "Why are you panting?" said Smidge. "I'll show you when it's finished," said Cuddleson. Smidge finally managed to patch together a ghost outfit he thought might do. Karlson tried it on and was very pleased with it. He flew a few circuits of the room to show it off. Smidge gave a shiver. He thought Karlson looked awfully spooky. Poor Miss Crawley, ghosts were what she wanted, of course, but now she would be getting one that would scare the wits out of anyone. "Creepy Crawley can send for those TV blokes now," said Cuddleson, "because the neighborhood ghost is on his way, motorized, wild and wonderful, and extremely dangerous." Cuddleson carried on flying around the room, chuckling smugly. He wasn't bothered about his painting anymore. Smidge went over to see what Cuddleson had painted. "Portrait of my rabbits," he had written at the bottom, but what Cuddleson had painted was a small red creature that looked more like a fox. "Isn't that a fox?" asked Smidge. Cuddleson came hovering down to land beside him. He put his head on one side and squinted at his picture. "Yes, it's a fox, all right. A fox painted by the world's best fox painter." "But," objected Smidge, "it says portrait of my rabbits. So where are the rabbits?" "They're in the fox," said Cuddleson. And what happens next time? We will find out on Wednesday. That's the end of today's chapter. And I think next time Karlson and Smidge are gonna play the ghost and have some fun with Miss Crawley. So I'll see everybody on Wednesday, and have a wonderful day and a wonderful week.